Hey guys, so you washed your car and you want to make it look even just that much better. Thinking, I'll give it a coat of wax. That'll be the answer. It's always good to give your car a coat of wax. It helps, if you have stone chips or scratches that are through the paint, it helps keep it from rusting. Of course, bugs and debris won't stick to it as easily. Here's a few tips that if you want to wax your car, you can do one extra step and give it a rubbing compound process to remove a bunch of fine scratches and swirls. So here we have a 2013 GT. Let's take a look at the paint on this thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over this part of the trunk with a polishing compound, and then I'm going to go over this part with just straight wax. So as you can see, there's those fine scratches. If you saw this car pull up in front of you outside, it'll look amazing. I'll just zoom back out. So we did a really good job washing the car. It looks really terrific right here. We'll see if it looks any different when we're done. I'll show you what we have for some products. These are some Auto Magic products, and there's a different manufacturer, this deep cut. So this is to use with a heavy duty polishing machine for getting rid of deep scratches in clear coat and regular single stage paint. This is also a cut polish, but after using this one isn't nearly as aggressive as this one. This is what I'm going to use on the back of the trunk lid, and then just wax. Wax is basically just sunscreen for your car. It helps keep debris off the car. It helps prevent the UV light from messing up the paint, and like I said, that just protects it. This is what gives it the shine. You wax your car, it will look shinier, but this will give it the extra shine. This is to the deep cut is used. It's like almost like wet sanding it. Not that aggressive, but when it comes to a polish, it is pretty aggressive, and that's what will actually take scratches out, because it's almost like you're lightly sanding away the layer of clear coat to make the scratch not as deep. So you got to be careful when you're using this. This is more forgiving. And wax, just put it on and let it dry and buff it off by hand. We've got polishing pads we're going to use for the magic cut, and then this is the ones I'm going to use for the wax. I've got an old school two-headed polisher. My dad used to use one of these back in the 70s, and it's really good. If you get too aggressive with something like this, what you could get is, say when the light reflects against the car and you see all those fine swirls, they're called holograms. These scratches are kind of sitting above the surface of the car in the light. It just they pop out, especially dark colors. When you see a reflection, say if the sun is coming down, it hits the side of the car and you see all these swirls from, reflecting in the light. It looks awful. So don't use an aggressive, deep cut polish on the whole car without using a finer polish to get rid of the holograms. This two-headed polisher, because it's sort of an orbital style, it's actually very forgiving, and it works really good. So we'll do that polishing back there so you can see the difference. And you might have noticed I had some masking tape. Here's what the masking tape is for. This molding here, it's not a totally smooth surface. It's kind of a porous finish to this plastic. Same with up here. Probably around this molding too. If you get wax on here, it'll look okay for a minute until it dries. When you wipe it off, you get white residue. for what this cost and for the very, very short period of time it takes to apply this, you'll be glad you did, because it'll take a lot more work to clean up these moldings after you get wax residue on them. We'll start off with that experiment to show the difference that the polish makes, and then we'll just carry on with the rest of the car. When that's done, we'll wipe off the polish residue, give it the final wax. That goes the quickest. And we'll see how this 13 GT looks when we're done. One other quick tip. If you go to the base of the windshield, the cowl area, the cowl trim molding at the base of the windshield, it's also porous. So I always recommend get a bed sheet or a towel. Go to the linen closet in the house and pick out something nice. You know, it's got to be clean. Okay, let's put a couple. Already got the pads soaked up a bit with polishing compound. So I'll just go like this. That should be more than enough just for that area. And I'll take my polishing rag. So we still have this scratch right in here. This one here is still there, but it's not as noticeable. I'm going to go over this with the heavy polisher and see if we get that scratch out. Always clean the pad off to get any dead, older polish off. We'll try getting this off. The big thing is, don't spin the living hell out of the polisher. Try and go on a lower speed, because you really don't want to burn through anything. So even if you don't get the scratch totally out, you will soften it up. So I'm going to show you something. As we get into here, we can still see some of the fine scratches, because this less aggressive polish doesn't touch these. But as we get over here, there's very few scratches visible. So maybe what we're going to end up doing is we'll go over the roof, the hood, and the trunk, and kind of the top sides of the car with the more aggressive polish, and then we'll go over with the two-headed polisher and then the wax. So a bit of a change of game plan. I'm just getting so much nicer of a finish in this stretch right here than as opposed to this. To make a car just really pop, this is what you want to do. It really, you got to be careful with this. Like I said, you don't want to burn through the clear coat. You don't want to run this too fast. You don't want to get anything too hot. Just things I've noticed over the years that I want to avoid, and that's, like I said, burning through the paint. I slowed it down a little bit. That is pretty glossy. When you stand back and compare this to how it looked before, you know, here's what I'll do. Let's pop this up. We'll wipe this. There, now you can see the difference. Look at how duller that looks compared to that. And just look, this is from this camera. This camera is about 4 feet away from the back of that car. So if it looks this good from here, imagine how it's going to look outside. We'll throw some wax on there and see the difference with wax over top of these two surfaces. And the wax, you don't have to spend much time buffing it in. It's just, once it gets on there, it's on there. So what we'll do, we'll let that dry for a bit, and then we'll just be able to buff it off. When it's dry, it'll buff off really easy. Well, I think I'm going to do the rest of the car. I'm going to start on it with the big buffer. Just looking, even at the hood, that's a scratch. There's some fine scratches. Here it looks like somebody tried cleaning something off. It's sort of a hazy area there, like it was wet sanded or something. Hard to say. There's a few blotches on the hood. Yeah, you can see that one in the video really good. Another one right there. Another one right over there. We'll get those polished out. So yeah, let's get started on this guy. The reflection is just excellent. You can see colors in the reflection. Let's go back here to check this out. I'll stand back. Look, this is about 3 feet away right here. You could totally see that line. And as you get closer, you can see how much smoother it is on this side than it is on that side. So that just goes to show how much nicer it is with the polish. Next item is, I'm just going to go on the top edges of the fenders and look for any other scratches that are further down. And then it'll be time to go with our less aggressive polish. It's good to fire up the compressor if you have one to get some, to blow some of the dust off. This isn't the same quality of a job that you see these professionals with the $500 polishers on YouTube. Like I love watching the work they do. It's amazing. Those guys are kind of next level stuff. But this is more for the average guy in his garage that you don't need a whole bunch of expensive tools to really make a difference. I know the big polisher I just used is basically an angle grinder with you could get the disc that screws on there. You put the soft pad on it. And the other polisher, you know, that is a really good polisher, but you don't really need one like that. Like the most work is that first polish, I'd say, because the second step is sort of just to make the first polish pop that much more. It's sort of more like a glazing polish. And your wax, well, that's easy. You can do it by hand or with a machine. Well, we got the second step done, and check this out. I don't think anybody could say that the car isn't shinier. So after you spend the time doing this, you got to put a coat of wax on. Like I said, that kind of seals everything off. It keeps contaminants from sticking. The rain and snow come off. But for the average guy in the average garage with the average tools, the biggest expense, I think, you know, let's face it, if you're a guy that's going to polish his car once or twice in the life of the vehicle, to go out and buy, you know, some of the polishes could be quite expensive. They could be $30 or so for a container. So you might not need that much. But for someone that's going to be doing this on a regular basis, it's good to get good product, and the tools don't have to be totally high end. All in all, the paint is just popping. It's just so nice and smooth. We're going to do the wax and dress the tires and a couple other little items, and we'll be done. Okay, at this point it took me roughly 20 minutes to do the wax on the rest of the car. There's a few little spots I'm going to go around to touch up where I missed with the wax, but it might take me about 10-15 minutes to buff the rest of this off. And one last little tip: clean your exhaust tips while you're at it. It's always a little bit of crust starting around. It's amazing what a minute or two will do for these. There we go, much better. Just that extra little bit of detail always helps.